Well, I'm joined here in the studio by Stephanie Hare, who's writing a book on the ethics of technology. You're very zeitgeist there. Your book's coming out next year, isn't it?
That's right.
And I have to ask, I mean, Tim Berners-Lee, we know about his worries about the use of the internet. So who's he pointing his remarks at above all?
Well, I mean, he's going for everybody, really, so it's very inclusive as a call. It's a global call to arms, so he wants governments to be involved because they're involved with legislating and regulating our technology, but he also wants companies to be involved because they, of course, design our products and services. Then he wants civil actors, so your NGOs and your academics and your journalists, to hold power to account. And then he wants all of us to keep the first three honest by feeding back and providing mechanisms to say, is it working or not?
What do you think about his chances for success, given that there is so much profit being made from online services?
I mean, it's a beautiful thing that he's calling for. I think he's clearly an idealist, and he's, he gifted us with the World Wide Web for free. He could have sold that or demanded profit from it, and he didn't. So this is a sort of moral call, an idealistic call. The problem is, I think, is that what he's really fleshed out here with the 80 or so organizations that he's been working with for the past year is a set of principles and guidelines. And those are great, and they're useful, and they have a role to play, but they're not enforceable. So law and regulation are what are really enforceable.
Well, in terms of regulation, I mean, you could say, for example, the European Union's already made big steps with GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. Is he implicitly saying it doesn't work?
Well, that's a really provocative point that we can discuss. So data protection experts and lawyers who specialize in implementing the GDPR would say that the GDPR is the gold standard for data protection, and that any problems with the GDPR are simply a case of lack of enforcement. So they would say that the fault lies with regulators like the Information Commissioner's Office not doing their job. The problem being is that really leaves the ICO in a place of playing whack-a-mole, because unless the people who build the technology actually respect the principles of the GDPR, and unless civil actors and lawmakers and all of us really sign up to that, it leaves the ICO in this position where underfunded and under-resourced, they have to sort of pick their battles. And they can't, because the number of internet violations and technologies that are being used on all of our data, it's not even just an EU problem, it's global. So the GDPR, I think, is a really good first draft. It's a good first start, and it's a piece of a bigger puzzle, a bigger solution. And that's what Sir Tim is calling for, is something much more global.
Yeah, and as you point out, he knows that governments alone, that you can't regulate this top down. And it's up to all of us, not just to be passive consumers, but to think as citizens.
Yeah.
What are the assumptions we're making, and what we need to hold power to account, all of us?
Yeah, I think this period from 1995 until about 2016, we'll look back on that in history and think that was a time of real naivete and simplicity with the internet. So we didn't really know what was involved on the back end with all of our data, and we started to get some very ugly truths revealed to us from 2016 with the US presidential election and the Brexit vote. But we also know that our data is just being trafficked without our knowledge and consent all over town, and that we don't really have power yet, not really, to stop it, to control it. We don't know who owns it. And these are really hot topics that we're still debating. We don't have the answers, we're just getting the questions right.
Yeah, well, getting the questions right is a big thing in itself. Stephanie, thank you very much for coming in. I know we'll have these discussions again and again.